I honestly wish somebody would have told me how overrated it is to own a home. My fiance and I just sold our house. We are back to renting. I'm ecstatic.
I have never felt more financially insecure than I do right now in this point of my life.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Today, we're going to be talking about home ownership, the American dream, as some would call it. But unfortunately, it's become a bit of a nightmare for a few people out there. And if you don't believe me, let's take a look at this.
Did you guys hear about this? 86% of millennials who are selling their homes that bought their homes in the pandemic regret ever purchasing that home in the first place. That time period is going to be a case study for decades. Rates were at the lowest that they've ever been, with 2.5% to 3% interest rate. And everyone was moving to the countryside because they could finally work remote. And now the landscape of real estate has completely shifted, with interest rates hovering around 7%.
Yeah.
And employers are rolling back their remote work policy. As a mortgage lender during that time, I can tell you this: it was not healthy, the amount of home buyers that felt so much pressure to put in an offer on a home that they never got to see the inside of. None of this comes as a shock to me whatsoever. As frustrating as it's been with these higher interest rates around 6 to 7%, it's honestly been a healthy dose of a good market, because a lot of home buyers and sellers are giving themselves times to figure out their next move. You can now go to a house, take a look at it, come back a day later, look at it again, dream a little bit, make a good, wise decision. And who knows, in the next 12 to 18 months, maybe we'll see even interest rates in the 5.
It's a sad, sad time for those who are wanting to buy a house, considering interest rates have been in the 6 to 7% range for so long. And the fact that this guy said that we could potentially see interest rates in the 5% range in the next 12 months, that just sucks, because we had it so good back in 2020, and before that we had it so good. As you can see, this guy, Alabama mortgage guy, shout out to him, he kind of points out the fact that there's been so much homebuyer regret over the past 5 years, specifically those who purchased a home in 2020 to 2023. I myself am one of those people. I bought a house in 2021, and I secured an interest rate below 3%. I'm not going to say how much, but below 3%. I'm thankful to God that my house was not over $300,000. It was very much a starter house, because if it was, it would have really put us in a bad financial position because of how much the home appreciated. And the reason that's bad is that as the home appreciates, so does the property taxes, so does the home insurance. And because those things increase, so does your monthly mortgage payment, or your total payment you have to pay. It is essentially like having an adjustable rate mortgage when you live in the South and property tax values increased as much as they did. And so if you bought a house for $400,000 or $500,000 back in 2021, 2 or 3, 2025, your house is worth probably $650,000. And if you were barely able to pay your mortgage back then, you almost certainly cannot pay your mortgage now. A lot of people just were not prepared for the amount of appreciation that has occurred. And unfortunately, that has priced them out of their current house. And this is a huge problem. This is a huge problem when it comes to home buying regret and becoming house poor. It affects everybody to some extent. It did affect me because my mortgage did increase. I think at one point it was $1,500 when we first moved in. Now it's hovering around $1,900. And last year it was, I think, $1,700. So there are increases here and there. And it's obviously not a good position to be in when your monthly expenses increase, because if you're living on a budget that is pretty thin at that point and you're not increasing your income, then you have to find room to make sure you don't lose the house. And a lot of people, unfortunately, are finding themselves in this position. And this problem kind of introduces us well into the next video.
I honestly wish somebody would have told me how overrated it is to own a home. My fiance and I just sold our house. We are back to renting. I'm ecstatic. He's ecstatic. We are saving so much. We were really young and stupid when we bought our house, so I'll give you that. But the weight that has been lifted off of our shoulders is, I can't explain it. There is so much maintenance that comes with the house, and our mortgage was ridiculously expensive. I can't even say the number because I'm embarrassed. We are probably not going to buy again for a very long time, or at least until we find our forever home. Just a PSA, if you're not ready for the maintenance and the cost that it comes to own a house, don't do it. Take your time. Please take your time. Find a good realtor.
So yeah, when you see people like this in an unfortunate situation where, I mean, kudos to her and her fiance for making the right decision when it came to the particular situation, which is if you're paying way too much, you have to kind of get out of the payment. And it's unfortunate because I do believe through and through that buying a home is far better for you in the long term than renting a home. However, that statement is not true when the mortgage payment is over 30% of your income, which she didn't mention any of the numbers, but just based on what she's saying, based on the context clues, I would venture to guess her payment was over $3,000 to $3,500. And when the average income of people in the United States kind of varies between 60 to 80,000, that's far, far more than you can afford when it comes to a mortgage payment. And a lot of the comments on this particular video are interesting because they're kind of split. Some are saying that it is a much better decision to buy. Others are kind of leaning into what she said and saying you made the right decision. And like I said, I think in her particular situation, she made the right decision. But this comment here raised some issues with me, and I think perhaps is along the lines of what she was experiencing. And it's this: girl, I am right there with you. We listed our home because a $6,000 mortgage is not it. We will rent and save and drop cash for the next home because a mortgage is a scam. See, I don't agree with this. A mortgage is not a scam. A $6,000 mortgage that you chose to get is just not a good decision. If you have a $6,000 mortgage, you got to be making $20,000 a month to be living comfortably in that, which is far, far above the average income in the United States. So in that case, just not good. And perhaps that was what her mortgage was, if she was hesitant to say, because a $6,000 mortgage, that is a lot of money. That is a lot of house. And when it comes to maintenance and things like that, because she specifically mentioned maintenance, this is a huge, huge talking point from people like Ramit Sethi, who's very much a rent first, buy later person. And I don't agree with everything he says. Obviously, he's a very smart guy. All that being said, it's wise to have money set aside for maintenance and things like that on a monthly basis, because you never know what's going to happen, especially if it's an older home. You know, things like an AC can go out. You can have water mains go out underneath your home. I mean, there's just so many, there's just so many potential issues that can come with owning property. But that's just a part of owning property. You have to take care and steward well everything that is on your land. But with that being said, this is a great, great example of being house poor. And for more information and more clarity on specifically what that means, let's look at this next video.
A lot of people cannot make progress financially because they are house poor and they probably don't even know it. Being house poor is when you own a home that you cannot afford. What does that look like? When you have a payment that is a very big percentage of what you make monthly, and all you can afford basically is to pay the mortgage. By the time you cover all your house expenses, you are basically left with nothing. I think it's important to talk about this because people are under the impression that as long as you own a home, you're winning. And that is not the case. If you are owning a home stressed out because by the end of the month, you have nothing left, you cannot afford that. That is what we call you bought too much house. With your monthly income, you should be able to pay your mortgage, set money aside, invest, basically still have a life, right? And not feel like you're drowning and not feel like you can't breathe. The biggest, smartest way to do this is waiting to buy a house when you are ready. Not when the pressure is, when are you going to buy a house? When are you going to buy a house? Oh, everyone buys a house when they get married. Why aren't you? No, you need to buy a house when you're ready. Doing this when you're ready looks like this. You should be debt free. You should have an emergency fund.
Yep.
And you should aim to have a really good down payment. 5, 10, 15, 20% down. And that will give you margin. That will give you breathing room. That will make sure you are doing this the right way. So don't let anyone pressure you into this. Buying a house is the biggest expense you're ever going to make, at least for most of us. Make sure you're doing this the right way.
Unfortunately, again, a lot of people have overextended themselves. If you bought past 2024, you almost certainly got an interest rate that was in the 5, 6 to 7% range. If you're buying now, it is definitely in the 6 to 7% range. And unfortunately, unless you're making over $100,000 a year, and even then, it's kind of like you're being tight there, unless you're making $150,000 to $200,000 a year, which is not many people. It's just going to be very, very stressful to own a home. everything she mentioned about being debt free, about having margin in your life through savings, things like that, and then having enough to put a good percent down, especially now. If you're going to buy a home now, you really need to put 15 to 20% down because you need to have equity in the house, because more than likely it's not going to appreciate very much in the next 3 to 5 years. But you want to have some margin there in case you have to sell it and not be underwater on your mortgage. And of course, there are societal pressures, because one thing she did mention is that if you're married, people are going to ask you, why haven't you bought a house yet? Obviously, I don't believe in this. If you're married, what you should be focusing on the most is the sanctity of your marriage, but also when it comes to money, building margin, making sure that you're debt free, making sure that you have savings, making sure that when you do buy a house, it is the right decision to not put you out financially. And in a lot of cases, I think when you first start out, renting is what you just have to do because you just don't have the money available. But I do want to go to one more story, one more video, because I think it just kind of highlights well and kind of puts a good bow on this video, if you will, about the current situation that people are dealing with.
I have never felt more financially insecure than I do right now in this point of my life. And let's dive into it. Last August in 2024, August 2024, I closed on my very first house. The house that I bought is by all means a starter house. It's a little outdated, a lot outdated. Definitely needs some work, but it's in a great area. A+ school district, a great area. Anyways, I bought my house for over $500,000 at a 6.2% interest rate.
Okay, before we go on, I just have to say, because this is insane, like a starter house being $500,000, 6.2%, that doesn't make sense to me. Obviously, I would like to know the floor plan. I'd like to know how many beds and baths there are, square footage, things like that. But $500,000 on 6.2%, you got to be making, I would say, $150,000 to be living comfortably with that payment, which, again, not many people are doing. But let's continue.
And just outside of buying the house, I've already spent over $60,000 of cash, not debt, not any loans, nothing, of cash from my savings pouring into the house.
And she's doing well. She's doing well financially. If she has 60 grand in cash and she poured it into the house, like, this is someone that's doing well and they're still struggling. It's just the climate, unfortunately.
That's repairs, some updates. And I haven't even done like the big projects yet. I haven't gone in and redone the floors or redone the countertops or done like a lot of the fun stuff. Like, I've done painting. We've done some moderate landscaping, not even like big landscaping. I got like a few pieces of furniture for the primary bedroom. Like, I haven't gone crazy, but all of the little things have added up. We had to get a new AC unit, which was $7,500. We had to get our house grounded. There was something wrong with the electrical, and that was $2,200. All of the stuff when you own a house adds up. And obviously you know that when you buy a house, like, that's obviously what you sign up for. But I think for this new generation, I'm only 28. I bought my house when I was 27. I think for this new generation of young buyers, it's just so hard. One, we're not getting reasonable house prices. My house literally 3 years ago was $300,000 cheaper than it is today. $300,000 in 3 years. And I will say, even though I've poured $60,000 into my house has technically appreciated more than that in the last 10 months. But it's just one of those things where now, with all of the economic uncertainty, I don't know. I'm also the type of person, though, where I like to hoard my cash. I don't like to make risky investments with my money. I don't like to just spend it because I feel like I'm already in the riskiest line of work, which is being an entrepreneur. And we know the statistics for small business owners. Luckily, my business is going on 7 years in business. Like, we're not full startup level, but it's still something that's really financially risky. However, all of this is just saying, owning a home is hard. The financial aspect of it mentally is really draining on me. Like, it is just a level of responsibility that I'm not necessarily enjoying in my life. I'm handling it, I'm dealing with the responsibility, but not just financially, but just the amount of work that it takes to maintain a home. It's just a lot.
And so this is a great video. She is, I can't really pronounce the names of people a lot of times. Her name is Alitza on TikTok. Anyway, you're doing great things, Alitza. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. She's an entrepreneur, which obviously at this channel, we encourage entrepreneurship. She's been doing it for 7 years. She's in a position to purchase a home at $500,000 at a 6 point something percent rate. And she had $60,000 to pour into the home. She's doing great. We all hope to aspire to this level of financial security. But even someone like this is struggling with homes. I do think whoever her real estate agent was did not do a great job advising her, because I would have never said to buy a home at $500,000, 6.2%. That needed work as well. You know, home inspections, whether one was done or not, obviously failed. The fact that she had to replace an AC unit, that they had to do work for electrical, is just not like, that's just terrible. That in and of itself is almost 10 grand right there. In my opinion, if you're someone that's looking to buy a home now in 2025, as most people would say, new homes are kind of crappy. They don't hold up as well as they used to, which I generally agree with that statement. There are some diamonds in the rough when it comes to new homes, and you should be looking at new home developments, because those are where you're going to get the lowest prices. Those are where you're going to find actual starter homes, where you're not buying too much house. And those are where you're going to get the best rates, because a lot of times those builders are going to give you deals. They're going to buy you out of rates because they're just not selling homes right now. They're in a bad position themselves. And so making sure you make the right decision there is where you'll find the best payment, in my opinion, when it comes to buying a house for the first time, and actually get a starter home that will fit for you and your family, and not buy too much house. Because in this particular situation, it looked like she just bought too much house at a crazy price. And if it did appreciate, that's great, but you're not going to realize that appreciation until you sell the house. And you never know if you sell it in a year, that appreciation is going to still be there or not, because of the economic uncertainty. But this is just the climate. This is, like I said, this is the climate with home buying. Or even someone that's well off as her is experiencing financial insecurity when it comes to buying homes. And the home buying regret is just running rampant today, which I don't like to see. It's unfortunate. I've experienced it myself to a degree. I love my house. I think it's a blessing. I think homes, when you buy them and they're something you can afford, are huge blessings. And I'm just interested to see where this will go in the next 3 to 5 years. I personally think that homes will continue to appreciate. They'll continue to get more expensive, because if we do end up cutting rates, there's just not enough, what's the word I'm looking for? There's just not enough inventory to keep up with the demand that exists out there, because there is demand to buy homes. The prices just don't match the demand. People are very, very stubborn right now, and they should be, because you should not be paying a crazy amount with a 6% interest rate, 7% interest rate. And that's just going to put you in a bad position. And people are becoming wiser, which is great. We want to see that. But that is what's going on in the housing market. And I'm sure we'll make an update video in the future. And hopefully that update is good and not bad. But yeah, thank you so much for watching the video. I hope you learned something. I hope you got some sort of value. Please leave a comment if you disagreed or agreed with anything I said, and like the video, share it, all that good stuff. Subscribe if you want to see more of the stuff. And until next time, I'll see you in the next video. Peace.